Today's collectible spot, we are having a look at the brand new Star Ace Underworld Evolution Viktor 6 scale figure. Having already looked at Selene, we want to have a look also at the Underworld Evolution Viktor. And again, comes to us from the same company, the folks over at Star Ace. The front of the box has a similar packaging, although it's a little bit more narrow than the Selene box. And you have also the overlaid artwork decoed on the top corners of the box. An image there of Viktor is featured on the front. On the side of the box, Underworld Evolution Viktor is product code SA0037. The back of the box, this comes to us from my favorite movie series, Underworld Evolution Viktor 1/6 scale collectible action figure. Feature also the cast and crew responsible for this down below, as well as a warning: choking hazard, small parts not for children under 3 years of age. Underneath that, it also has adult collectible. It's not a toy. It's recommended for ages 15 and up. Finally, just before we open this up, package-wise, let's open the front flap, which is Velcroed. We open that up completely. And on the inside, you got an image there of Viktor. On the other side, you've got the figure with the interchangeable hands, several different weapons, and jewelry to adorn the figure. Spot's going to take a break and get this opened up completely. When we come back, though, we're going to get a better look at the Star Ace Underworld Evolution, the Viktor 6 scale figure. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. And now that we have Viktor out of packaging, just before we have a look at the figure, we'll have a look at the display stand that comes with the figure. Now, very similar to Selene, the display stand itself is a very just simplistic oval, just a black oval-shaped display stand featuring Viktor on a front placard. The back can be adjustable. Now, this has a waist clip as opposed to the clip where the figure will sit on top of it. I wish, again, that they would have had something featured on the top there, maybe where it just had said Evolution, or I should say Underworld, something just like a font overlaid as opposed to just a very neutral stand. Now, with that being said, the figure is still going to be standing on it, so you're not really going to be seeing the font anyways, but just a little small point that I would note. For the release of Viktor here, I think Star Ace has done a beautiful job on this figure. I was a little iffy. Truth be told, I was a little iffy on how the Selene turned out. I think, again, I'm more warming up to the sculpt on her face. But I think by far, they've nailed the face here on Viktor. Yes, for the face sculpt, there's no denying at all that that looks like Viktor, or Bill Nighy, who has, of course, portrayed Viktor in several of the Underworld flicks. One of my favorite actors, actually, as well. I really liked him also in, Davy Jones, also in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies as well. But I was a big fan of Bill Nighy, and I did like him as Viktor. I think this is a fitting likeness here, portraying the character Viktor from Underworld. The sculpt on here is incredible. Fine little details and wrinkles added to the skin tone of his face. His piercing blue eyes, I think, only adds to the lifelike qualities that this figure possesses. And again, while I'm still on the fence with Selene, there is no doubt, in my mind at least, that that looks exactly like Viktor. Even to the extreme close-ups of this figure, you can see all the little wrinkles and off-colorings around the area portions of his eyes where they're a little bit more like blood red around the areas around the eyelids and the under eyelid portions. The sunken in face as well as sunken in cheek area of his facial structure. The hair sculpted beautifully as well. There's a little side of his face as well. I would almost say, as much as Star Ace has impressed me when it comes to the Harry Potter stuff, this might be probably one of the best sculpt-wise, best sculpts I've seen on one of their 6 scale releases. Viktor's outfit consists of a long leather-like trench coat which underneath it, we just move the trench coat to the side here. While the arms aren't necessarily sculpted in any sort of way, they have given him a rubber overlaid torso piece that has the aged look and withered look to this character. Even like you can see the area of the skin portions around his neck are very loose, very mangled, very old in complexion. And again, like just the skin tone that they've given to the flesh is remarkable. I'm just completely taken back, especially when it comes to the wrinkling and just the flaps of skin around his neck. It's very lifelike. As for the rest of his body, he's got a longer, it's not quite a skirt, but it's like individually long pants. Actually, when you look at the figure and you take him out, it does look like it's one long strip of fabric, but in fact, it's actually two strips of fabric that have individual creases in them as well. If I can just separate them slightly, you can see what I'm talking about here, how they've folded over the portions of the pants so that they give a different, like they have multiple layers to them as opposed to just one neutral fabric coming straight down. This is probably not the most flattering areas of the figure. Obviously, you can just see it's not intended to be shown, so they've just put like leggings on the underside of the figure's pants. And then Viktor's got a pair of boots, which again have been sculpted quite nicely. They're a little on the pliable standpoint. You can't really bend the feet up and down too much. I mean, when it comes to posability that we will look at in a second, you're really not going to be able to bend these at all, but they are sculpted quite nicely. Unable to resist it, I had to go back to the neck. The neck by far is the stunning aspect of this figure. Now, keeping in mind, of course, when you're going to be putting the jacket on him completely, you're probably not going to see so much of the torso end of it. When you get him out of packaging, the jacket is more closed. I'd be more inclined to kind of keep it slightly open so you can see a little bit of his chest. But I'm very super impressed with how the neck turned out. By the way, this is, if you are wondering, much like the torso application, the neck is also a soft rubbery. And in the interior of that is the ball joint that's going to be housing and holding the neck socket in place. Just want to show all the little details to the jacket as well. It's got these very fine gold filaments running down on the sleeve portions as well as the front portion of his jacket. Even the interior, if I can flip the figure around here, even the interior of the collar has that same gold filament pattern printed on the inside, which also carries over to the back, a much larger pattern featured on the back torso here. The jacket is very long. It does have it does feel like a synthetic leather. It's obviously not a real leather, but I think they did a pretty good job of recreating what could have been a leather for a 6-scale figure. The texture does feel pretty good. The inside, that's what the interior of the jacket looks like there. Very impressed though with the jacket itself. There's a couple little things too that you can go ahead and add to the jacket. Let's go ahead and do those now. Starting first, Viktor's got this gold chain, a real metal chain, and it's got a couple of little clasps on the top here. What you need to do, according to the instructions, is you need to loop them onto the pant belt. And the belt is a loose enough appliance, and I don't know if you can see it or not. Hopefully I can hold it up to the camera. See how it's a front clasp? If you turn it slightly to the side, you can see that it's actually more so a hook. We'll just go ahead and run that. And actually, you may need to even bend this out slightly just so it gets a bigger gap in between the two. And then we can go ahead and latch it onto his belt, preferably finding a more thinner component, a thinner section of his belt that we can latch it on against. If anything, you might find this to be the more difficult portion of putting anything on Viktor, but once you get it on there, it's very securely, and I do like how one end is a little longer, that it droops down. It just gives a little extra accents to the pant portion as opposed to having it just all black running down. The next thing we can go ahead and add to him as well is he comes with this pendant. It's also on a similar chain. It's a little bit smaller than the chain that loops itself down from the belt. And there is a close-up look at the pendant, if I hopefully don't drop it, the pendant that's going to be going on to him. It's painted nicely in gold, similar gold to the filigree or the little accents onto his jacket. And we can go ahead and grab a loop of it, and we can just drape it over his head. I've already done this once. You don't really need to take the jacket or the head off to accomplish it. You can very easily fit it over top of his head, and that's a completed look now to Viktor. Like with the belt, I do like that the pendant gives a little extra something to the torso portion of the figure. Now granted, this is all taken from source material from the film, so it's not like they're incorporating really new designs to something that the character didn't have in the movie, but even to the smallest details of incorporating something like the pendant, I think Star Ace has nailed it. This 6th scale release of Viktor will come also with the following accessories. He gets himself a pair of interchangeable hands, which as you can see are partially closed or gripping hands, as opposed to the more relaxed palms that are currently sitting in his socket. He only comes with a pair of extra single pair of hands, but suited for the next accessories. That's because the next accessories he comes with is a pair of smaller swords or daggers. They're not mirror copies to one another. Hopefully you can see that one, there we go. One has more of a slotted open interior, whereas the other one is a complete realized and solid blade. Other than that, though, it looks like the hilts are the exact same to one another, decked out in a nice, slightly bluish silver treatment. And we can fit those into his hand. If you want to give Viktor something, though, a little bit larger, well, he also comes included with a sword. And the handle, as well as the top portion, just before it gets to the blade, is decked out in this immaculate looking sculpted detail. Even right to the very top there, hopefully you can see it, there is a V at the top, hopefully. Let's see if the camera will focus on it and not Viktor. There is a V, there we go. There's a V right at the top of the handle. The handle is somewhat a gunmetal gray, with the handle portion being that similar gray, but in a slightly darker color. Now to get this into his hand, it's as simple as popping the end portion off, which actually, there we go, is a little tight there. And from there you can just easily fit it through one of the interchangeable hands that we just recently had a look at. Revisit the handle, and Viktor can now hold the sword in hand. Hand changing, by the way, is never difficult. Just go ahead and roll up the sleeve a little bit, wiggle the hand to make sure that you're pulling it off the peg and not taking the peg with you. And then we can just revisit the hand with the sword. Sometimes you do have a little bit of a problem where the joint wiggles and bends as you're putting the hand in, but if you kind of do go through the same method that I do, just kind of wiggle it slowly as opposed to pushing it on, should be no problem whatsoever getting the sword in his hand. Yes, I think a rather fitting sword for an outstanding release here of Viktor. Now obviously Spot can't do this guy any bit of justice without at least comparing him next to the Selene that we already had a look at. And here we have Selene right next to him. Now, I actually did end up putting the jacket back on Selene, even though in the review I thought that the figure looked better without the jacket, but I'm still really torn when it comes to displaying how she's going to be looking. So just for the time being, I've got the jacket on. But you can see how the figures stack up well to one another. Viktor being a little bit taller, of course, than the release here of Kate Beckinsale. I think they fit and complement each other perfectly. She could easily have stood on her own, yes, but I think by incorporating additional characters from the lore of Underworld, I think can really beef up and enhance a display. And I'm hoping that this isn't going to be the last of what we're going to be seeing from Underworld releases from Star Ace. Maybe we can eventually start getting ourselves maybe some additional characters we've seen from the movie as well, or I'm kind of holding out hope that we're going to get ourselves a lichen as well. And I think a liking will be the icing, I should say, on a cake that already is delicious. With the figures side by side and a closer look at their face, while I do think, and more while I'm looking at the figure, I think I'm seeing more Selene in the face that I didn't necessarily see in the initial outing of this figure. However, I think between the two, I think the stronger likeness here is with Viktor. Kudos to Star Ace for the releases of both figures. Kudos for finally giving us a Selene. But I think if I could give an award for the better likeness, I would probably hand it here, though, to Viktor on the left. When it comes to the 6 scale figure's articulation, let's go through it together. He does have a ball joint in the head, allowing the head for full rotation all the way around. You also have a hinge up and down. It doesn't appear that he has as much the flexibility, though he does still, as you can see, full rotation in the head. I just mean that he doesn't seem to have a secondary ball joint at the base of the neck area here. And likely it's probably because of the overlaid rubber that they've added to the torso piece. When you get to his shoulders hinge out fairly easy, not restricted at all, it seems, by his jacket that they've put over top of him. He does also have a rotation in his bicep, a double bend at the elbow, and he has a rotation and hinge in the hand portion. When it comes to his torso does have a ball joint, but it's actually not ball jointed or crunched at this section. Rather, it's actually ball jointed right at the base where it meets itself to the waist. That same area also allows the waist to move back and forth. So essentially it's accomplishing both things, a crunch and a waist swivel. His legs do go forward and back. They don't seem at all restricted. Again, much like his jacket, everything on him sits loose enough that it seems like it's not restricting any bit of motion and movement. He has a swivel right at the top portion of his thigh, right around here actually, it rotates there. He has a double hinge on the knee, again looking at the interior workings, there's the double joint there. And as we had already looked at, he has a rotation in his boot, more so just by virtue of the fact that the boot's been plugged into place, allows for the rotation right there. You can get a little bit of a crunch and a little bend in the ankle, but it doesn't stay in place, it doesn't permanently stay in that position. It's just a rubbery appliance, being this whole boot is a softer rubber. I am simply in love with this release from Star Ace. Truth be told, again, we've looked at many different things on this channel from releases from the same company. More importantly, the Harry Potters. I mean, if you do a search basically on my channel, the majority of what I've looked at from Star Ace is their bread and butter was the Star Ace Harry Potter releases. They've done so many great releases from those, and now we're kind of starting to see some of the other things that they can now bring the collectors. I've always loved Underworld. It's one of my favorite go-to movies for just a fun action flick. I always go back to the original Underworlds, and seeing then what they did with Selene, now seeing what they've done with Viktor, I can't wait for new releases for Underworld. If Star Ace can only continue expanding out the lore of Underworld by giving some of the additional characters that we saw in the movie, and again, some of the lichens as a possibility, we are going to be very, very excited, really, for what is the future is going to bring for Star Ace. Looking beyond the scope of Harry Potter, Star Ace does a lot of other cool things as well. And if you're a fan of Underworld, do yourself a favor, pick this up. Do yourself a favor as well and pick up Selene. And I hope maybe we'll probably get some other Selenes in there as well. Maybe a Selene with the blue eyes, I think would be a nice touch as well. But fine work, Star Ace. Fine, fine work. Today's collectible spot, we were looking at the Underworld. This was Underworld Evolution Viktor 1/6 scale collectible action figure from the folks over at Star Ace. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more videos heading your way as well. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.